Kevin Rudd himself. Kevin Rudd himself.
Oh, I did too.
Kevin Rudd himself said in late 2002 that the weapons of mass destruction did exist. The British and the Americans thought they existed, and they were in favour of the war. The French and the Germans thought they existed, and they were against the war. Everyone thought they existed. It just so happened that everyone was wrong. And at the risk of further aggravating people, why do we have to have this audience, Bob? Can't we just talk to ourselves? Anyway, at the risk of further aggravating people, whether something is a lie depends not on what subsequently turns out to be so, but on your state of mind at the time. That is the Bob. I think you've studied moral philosophy, I'm sure, just as much as I have. So I'd be interested in your view on that.
Absolutely. Well, yes, I agree. I think all but the informed, that is, the people searching for them, believed they were there. I certainly did, and nobody thought, as I certainly did not, that Saddam was pretending to have them and had buried them long ago as a bad job. I need to know your filial relationship, or whatever it is, with John Howard. It puzzles those of us who think him a barbarian and you not beyond reach. How is this? Perhaps also Santa Maria, who is, I agree, was as interesting a figure as you found him. Somewhere in there are father figures that need explanation now that you are put on the stage.
Okay, well, Bob, I think all of us have. Father figures is one term.
Yes.
Role models and mentors, yes, might be another term.
Yes.
And I think, if I may say this, particularly to the younger members of the audience tonight, find people who you admire. Ask yourself what it is about those people that you particularly like, and try as best you can to emulate those likeable features, because that is how we grow. That is how we become our best selves.
Was Howard's capacity as a performer one part of the attraction? I regard him as one of the great actors of modern politics.
John was perhaps the greatest stump speaker, political stump speaker. Is this your phone, Annabelle?
Yeah. No, it's mine. They're telling me that Nathan's lost it.
Okay. John Howard could sometimes sometimes he could be pedestrian. There's no doubt about that. But under pressure in the Parliament, he was a magnificent stump orator. My second day in the advisor's box working for John Hewson, the first day was Budget Day 1990, and Keating hadn't been in the chamber for question time. And our shadow ministers had bowled up questions to various Labor ministers and had embarrassed a few, got a few laughs, and I thought, geez, this is pretty good, this is pretty easy. Next day, Keating was in the chamber, and he absolutely flayed our blokes. There was a palpable sense of menace across the floor of the chamber, and I can remember turning around and looking at our backbench and thinking, God, these blokes look like someone's hit them.
Okay.
That's how it looked. And it really was. It was almost intimidatory, the sheer power of the verbal assault from Paul Keating. And it was certainly very depressing. And then the MPI came up, and I think from memory it was led by Peter Reith, but it was seconded by John Howard.
Yeah.
And I listened to his speech, and it was like the warmth returning to your veins after you've come in, after a walk on a really cold day. It was strong, it was combative, it was defiant, it was well argued, it wasn't just bluster. And you know, Peter Costello was a better parliamentary hunter-killer than John Howard, but John Howard was a much better parliamentary speaker for all seasons. He could handle all occasions. He was a master of all moods and all modes, and that really impressed me. But you know, Howard, the other thing about Howard was that senior politicians are under tremendous pressure, and if you're leading the country, there's so much stress. And I never saw Howard really angry to the point of losing it with other people, and I think that is one of the signs of a true gentleman, that he never comes home and kicks the cat, so to speak. Well, John Howard never walked in and abused the staff or yelled at the Comcar driver or suddenly bawled out a colleague unless it was absolutely necessary.
What's it like going to boarding school quite near your home?
You're talking about the Federal Parliament?
No. I found that you and Turnbull had this in common, a kind of an enforced near exile.
Yeah, but you see, Malcolm was a boarder at a boarding school. I was a day boy at a boarding school. So I had the best of all possible worlds. If Mum didn't want to feed me, I could stay and eat in the ref. But if there was a decent meal at home, I could go there.
Bang goes a Freudian theory. What is the difference between the invisible hand that is believed in by the economic fundamentalists and God?
Well, the invisible hand is not a question of faith. The invisible hand, I think, can be observed in practice, not in the sense that there is a finger here and a sinew there and a nail somewhere else, but in the sense that allowing thousands or millions of people to make their own decisions based on self-interest under the law, within a framework of law, produces better outcomes than someone sitting at some point trying to direct all those thousands or millions of people. I mean, the old command and control economies of Eastern Europe and the Soviet bloc were examples of what happened when the best tried to direct all. By contrast, the slightly chaotic market economies or semi-market economies of Western Europe and America and Australia were what happened when people within reason were allowed to do their own thing. And we all know that economically, at least, they worked out much for the best.
Doesn't the papacy try to direct all?
Well, one of the follies of medieval scholasticism was their attempt to look at economics in the same way that they might look at theology. And you had these things called, things like the theory of the just price. Well, I mean, in the end, the price that is just is the price that people will pay, or perhaps it's cost plus. But the idea that there is some intrinsic price in things is just crackers, but that didn't stop lots of theologians and philosophers from toying with it for centuries.
You no longer believe that usurers should be burnt at the stake?
No, I don't.
What changed your mind?
Well, I guess when I got my first interest check, I thought that's...
Do you think Bob Santa Maria had the same view?
No, well, that's an interesting interjection. You know, Bob was my first political mentor, and
a brilliant man.
Absolutely brilliant man. But he wasn't right in every way by any means, and Bob, he was never quite comfortable with economics, and he was never quite comfortable with markets. And
7 acres and a mule.
I think it was an Italian and a goat on 10 acres.